Hey everybody, I've got kind of a shorter video for you here today, something that I probably never talked about here on this channel before. I wanted to talk about what is in this box. Now, it's not a mystery box, it's just one of the boxes that I use. I have multiple of these when I'm doing multi-camera events, sometimes even single camera events. But in this box is all the equipment that needs to be connected up to the cameras. So I keep this all together so that we go from one event to the next. Everything's there. Everything we know we need is in there. Things are organized. Make sure that all the cameras have exactly what they need. So, how about we just dive in and take a look and see what's in here. Now you can see from this thing that's pretty well beaten up. I've used these things for 6 years now. They've been through a lot of events. But we open this up and take a look at what's inside there. Mostly cables, right? But before we dive into that, I want to show you something that I've done here. So I've got this card that I stick in each one of these bins, and this contains a number of different things. So first of all, it contains a list of the contents that are supposed to be in this bin. That's super useful so that when camera operators are taking stuff down, they know it needs to go back in here so they're not putting things in the wrong place. It's also useful for when you're setting up to make sure that everything you need is actually in place as well. So we got the list of contents here. And then just below that, I have a section on this card that says, make these connections. So this tells somebody who's setting up, who maybe hasn't worked for me before, what connections we actually need to make between the equipment that's in here and the cameras. So for example, we have a BNC cable that goes from the camera SDI output to this BMDCC, which is a Blackmagic Design camera converter, this silver box here. SDI input. Then we have an HDMI output on the BMDCC, which goes to an LCD monitor that goes on top, which I'll show you just here in a moment. So anyway, it just walks through all the different connections that need to be made. Therefore, I don't have to be babysitting someone who's never actually set up one of these setups before. And they can just go over the checklist and make sure that they're doing everything that they need. Along with that, on this side, we also have a section here which says, this is how you put the stuff back into the bin to make sure that it fits. Before I had one of these things, people were just cramming stuff in here and they wouldn't close. But with this section in here, I've had much better luck about making sure that people actually put stuff in here in a way that fits and is organized and is neat. So below that, I have another section here that says basically these are the other items that are going to be needed, and here's where you're going to find them. So there you go. Along with that, we have a section right here which has some very basic instructions on how to operate this Blackmagic Design camera converter. Let's flip around to the back side. There's a troubleshooting section, which basically says if this is something that's going wrong, this is how you fix it. So we've got a number of different things that can be done there. Now, over here, we've got something that says at the beginning of the shoot, before we've actually gone live, these are the things. There's a couple things that you need to do. At the end of the shoot, there's something that needs to be done. And those are mostly around SD cards. So making sure that we start recording at the beginning, finish recording at the end, and then get those cards to me so I can actually do my DIT work. At the end, I've also got a list of tips here. For example, wind all cables using the over-under technique, which I'll demonstrate here on this channel at some point. But this is a way to make sure that the equipment is being treated properly for longest life, and it's not going to wear out or be damaged in process. Okay? All right, so that's the first thing. And I try to put that on top so that people see it right away. Obviously, in this case, that didn't happen. All right, so I'm actually going to go bottom up. So let me pull all this stuff out of here. As I put it back in, I'll describe what each thing is. So in the bottom of this case, I have a soft-sided case, which is where I store an on-camera monitor. So in this case, it's a 7-inch monitor from Neewer. I like 7-inch. I've kind of settled down on that as the default size for all the monitors that I put on my cameras. And it's got a cold shoe mount here on the bottom, and then it's got all the connections you need here on the side. And I always like to have sunshades because we work outside fairly often. So yeah, so that's in the bottom. It goes in the bottom of the case. And in the soft case to kind of give that a little bit additional protection. On top of that, we place the Blackmagic Design camera converter. I'm going to show you how this connects into my system here in a moment. But this box allows me to carry camera feeds from camera, a return feed back from switcher to the on-camera monitor. That also includes intercom and tally. and there's a way to do audio from this as well. In addition to all of that, it also has converters for SDI and HDMI all in one, so if I happen to be using a camera that doesn't have SDI, it has HDMI instead, I can still just plug that in. If we're running with a monitor that has SDI, I can use the SDI output. Otherwise, I usually use the HDMI output on there. So, but yeah, this connects to my main switcher, both the one in my trailer and the one in my fly pack, over fiber, and I'm going to demonstrate how that works here in a moment. Okay, so that's the next thing that goes in the bin. On top of that, we place the headset, and this is one of the HyperX Cloud Stinger headsets that I've kind of settled on as my default option. These are pretty comfortable, and they're actually loud enough to be used in a video production environment, and they have the required 3.5mm connection, or 1/8 inch for those of you who refer to it that way. So this plugs directly into the camera converter on the headset connection there, and that gives us intercom audio at the camera. Okay, next, power supply for the Blackmagic camera converter. Then we have a power supply for the monitor. And by the way, you notice that all these are actually labeled with the bin number that they go in. That makes it much easier to make sure that everything goes back to where it needs to go. Okay? Speaking of power, the next thing we have in here is a 3-way power tap. I believe that's a 6-foot cable, and it has 3 power connections on it. So I've got one for camera, which I do not include the power supplies for the cameras in these bins. I have one for camera, one for the camera converter, and then one for the on-camera monitor, and that's all we ever need. Those 3 are sufficient. I have an SDI cable for camera output into camera converter input. I have HDMI cable for camera converter output into monitor input. Keep a zoom controller, and I like these push button ones because you may be able to maintain nice smooth speed, although in a couple of my bins I also have the rocker style as well for when we're doing something like sports, where zooming in and out all the time is something that's kind of necessary. And then the last thing I keep in here is a little clamp like this. This clamps around the leg of a tripod, and then this here bolts into the back of the camera converter. So that way the camera converter is right there on the side of the tripod, where the camera operator can very easily reach the push to talk in order to communicate back with the crew in the trailer or the technical director on site. So with all that, put the card on top and call it good. So I've got 6 of these all pre-made, made up, ready to go, and when it comes time to set up, I just have one of these get set by each camera. I tell them the instructions are inside, and most of the time they're able to figure it out, and it doesn't require much troubleshooting on my part. Okay, so that's that, and this has been an absolute lifesaver in terms of organization and making sure that I don't have to babysit every connection that's being made on site. The camera operators that are helping are actually able to help out with that. So I promised that I show you how the fiber portion works, so I'm going to grab my switcher, my fly pack switcher, set that up and show you how that is all connected. Okay, so I'm going to do a very abbreviated version of the setup that I actually used. I'm not going to actually pull out a camera here or a monitor, but you'll get the idea. So this is all based around fiber, and this is a 75-meter fiber here, so just under 250 feet. Takes up very little space for the amount of distance you're getting. The same thing in equivalent SDI. First of all, you have to have 2, one for program, one for camera, one for program, so 2 different directions, plus intercom on top of that. So this is super compact, super easy to work with, and this is armored cable, so it's actually pretty resilient. We had an event a couple weeks ago where a microphone cable got damaged in a location where this fiber cable was absolutely fine. So these are pretty resilient. So all right, so I'm going to pull off the hook and loop there, and pull off the dust caps from the fiber, and I'm going to plug it into the Blackmagic camera converter. So just like that, and then I'm going to power this on. So we'll be able to see a signal here in a moment. Then I'm going to take the other end of the cable, pull off the dust caps, and then I'm going to plug it into the back. There we go, just like that. And from there, if we take a look at the camera converter here, we've got an optical signal, which means we have signal coming from here. And if we were to connect a monitor up to this on the HDMI output, we would be seeing the program feed, which right now you won't be able to see it, but it's actually color bars. So be able to see on the monitor, on camera, exactly what's going on the switcher. I could send any signal I want. I could be an isolated feed, or I can do multi-view, whatever I want. So whatever I want to send the camera operators, I can do that. And then the camera operators can actually switch between program and their own local camera just by pressing that button there. Anyway, that's kind of the gist of it. Having things organized into those bins certainly makes things much easier than it was before I started using those. And using fiber with all of this makes setup times dramatically faster. Because we're getting so many signals over a single, small, lightweight, easy to use, and actually inexpensive cable. But that's going to about do it. So if you have any questions about this, be sure and leave those in the comment section down below, or even better, come over and join us on Discord. The link for that's popping up on your screen now. And we have a discussion server set up for people who are in the video production community where we can all talk to each other, answer one another's questions, ask questions of people who maybe know more than we do. It includes me. So you can join us over there. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. I try to do video production related content around once a week. I'm going to do better, I promise. But yeah, if you're interested in video production related topics, then this is going to be one of the channels that you're going to want to subscribe to. So thanks everybody for watching, and have a fantastic day.